So if you've been watching this channel for a couple of years now, you'll realise that I've made a lot of stuff, and basically every single video on this channel has been made on FL Studio. Now FL was the first software that I actually came to use. It was the one that I first went on to watching Nick Mira videos back in the day, those deconstructed videos on YouTube and all of the live streams he used to do, and it just stuck with me. So I've always done FL, I've always recorded anything that I've done in FL, but recently I started uni and they use Logic. And in this video I wanted to go over some differences in Logic, why I'd personally choose FL for some things and Logic for others. Yeah, let me know down below what your experiences are with FL, what your experiences are with Logic, what you like about FL and what you like about Logic. But yeah, let's get into the video. Right, so I've got a little list here of stuff that I wanted to include in this video. The first thing is the interface. Now this thing, I don't know if you guys want to relate this to anything, but this does look like a video game. That might just be down to the fact that I've used GarageBand before. GarageBand does look like a bit of a video game, especially if you're using it on mobile. It does just look like a bit of a game, and there's nothing wrong with that because it's something that's been used in music studios worldwide. So if that works in music studios, then there's no reason why it shouldn't be able to just work on your laptop in a home studio. Obviously, because it's a different software and it's made by Apple, they're going to have different workflows from FL. So for instance, if you're trying to look for any sounds, instead of going to the left, you go to the right, and you can go through all of your files on your PC and just go through any folder that you want to choose. In FL, obviously, you can choose specific folders that you want to have in that section. And here you just go through any of your files. And in a similar way, when you're adding in plugins, instead of specifically only being able to go onto the channel strip and then just add an instrument, you can also find specific Logic presets. So if you click this button over here, you can find all the sound library and you can just find anything you want. So if you wanted to find, for instance, a piano, so I'll find you the Steinway piano in here, then you can just load that up from there. That's something I do want to get into and do really want to talk about is the MIDI. Now the MIDI is an absolute chaotic nightmare for me because coming from FL, it's so much easier to use MIDI, and I don't know why. It just seems like you're doing too many steps to get the same result. With FL, literally you have to do left click and you've got all the notes in, but for some reason you have to for me, I have to hold command and then I have to place a note. I don't know if there's a shortcut to be able to just click it in. I don't like the way that you have to press many buttons to just get the same result. In terms of things like strum and randomizer, there is a randomizer in here, so if you go into functions and you go into MIDI transform, you can change all these different parameters. The closest thing that we've got to the randomizer and the strum mode is if you go into functions, MIDI transform, and then humanize. And one of the selling points of Logic being a versatile DAW is the fact that you can obviously do all of this production stuff. It's quite good at that, but it's also good at engineering and mixing and mastering. And one of the things that they've recently added in, which wasn't in this actually when I first started my course, but they brought in just a couple of weeks ago, is this mastering tool. And if you literally go onto a track, press a mastering, essentially uses this AI to tell you what you want to get from it. So if you want a specific sound, it will give you this mastering chain, which basically helps you to master your track without having to do anything. Of course, this can make you a lazy producer and then you'll end up not actually learn how to master stuff. But if you're just someone who's just made a beat and just like, right, you know what, I just want to get a quick master out, then this is the perfect tool for you. Just slap it onto a track and it does everything for you through AI. AI is quite scary. Also, the recording engine, I don't know if it's just placebo, but for some reason it just feels a lot different recording stuff in. It sounds a lot cleaner to me. I don't have to do as much EQ, and obviously EQing you don't have to do in anything, but it seems like the engine that records the vocals sounds a lot cleaner and requires less vocal processing than FL. And I've always said if the mastering engine is good enough to make a Grammy Award winning album with FL, then it doesn't really matter. It's more about who's using the tools. But using Logic, I've noticed that it is very, very different. Now, flex mode was cool 3 years ago when everyone was like, oh my god, Logic's got a flex tool, it's so cool, and like this is something that FL doesn't have. FL now does have flex tool, so it doesn't really matter anymore. If you're coming to Logic strictly for flex tool, then you're wasting your time, you're wasting your money. Now again, flex pitch is something that we've now got with Newtone, but beforehand, if you didn't have Newtone, which you wouldn't have had in FL, you would have come onto the Logic and done the same thing, which is essentially this manual pitch correction tool, which you've got all these parameters where you can change the different pitches and vibrato and whatnot. Now, a little minor thing, I don't really want to go over to this too much because it's not too important, but when you're exporting stuff, I've noticed if you go onto file and export, it only lets you export it as a wave. However, if you wanted to export it as an MP3, all you have to do is go into bounce and then project. Now again, the step sequencer, it's another thing where Logic kind of falls short in my opinion. Obviously with FL, when you load it up first time, you'll always have that massive step sequencer somewhere in here. It just does very much remind you of GarageBand. It's essentially the same thing as what you'll find in GarageBand. And obviously the difference with the FL workflow is the step sequencer also acts as a channel rack instead of the channel rack in this case being in the arrangement. It might sound confusing, but you'll know what I mean if you use FL and you use Logic. But yeah, in my opinion, just from my workflow and how I work, I prefer the step sequencer in FL. Now, something that I do wish FL did have is something called Smart Snap. Now, this is actually really cool because if you, for instance, zoom out like I have done here, the note values that your notes will snap to changes. So I'll show you now here. So for instance, if I'm using this piano here, this Steinway piano, if I try and input notes, it inputs it on grid on these specific lines which I can see. However, if I zoom in, it starts letting me input the notes onto these lines which I can now see, which have now just appeared. It's actually a very cool feature, and I would really like to see it in FL in some way, shape or form. Going back to audio, I also want to talk about take folders because these are actually very useful. So for instance, if I've got these 3 takes, I'll go through these ones. So take 1 is this one here. Logic is better. And then yeah, obviously I've made a mistake. I've said Logic is better. So if I wanted to, for instance, go into a different take, I've got this one. FL is better. So yeah, if I wanted to use this one, I'd choose this take. You can also combine takes. It's a different process to FL, so instead of having to chop everything up and do it manually, you can literally just brush over different takes like this. Logic is FL is better. Obviously that's not perfect, but when you're recording a guitar in or like piano in, you can record different takes and then you can combine the different sections of takes. But yeah, I think that's about it for what I wanted to say between the differences between Logic and FL. Now my conclusion, would I use FL or Logic religiously without using the other? No. I don't think FL's got the same capabilities as Logic to be able to do mixing and mastering in the way that Logic can do, and that's why Logic is used so much in professional studio spaces. In the same way I'd want to use FL if I wanted to make beats. The only exception I'd make to that rule is if I'm making loops, because Logic's stock sounds are vastly better than the FL ones that you'll find, unless you're using Flex for instance. But yeah, as I said at the start, let me know down below your experiences of using Logic or your experiences of using FL, what you like about each software, what you don't like about each software, and what you think they should change. But yeah, thank you guys for watching this video. See you in a bit.